My name is Carl Cranston. I have a story to tell. This story has aspects of triumph and tragedy, comedy and uncertainty. 40 years of doing show-winning auto interiors, life's ups and downs. If you want to hear the rest of the story, as Paul Harvey would said, please click on to the link shown below. By 1975, cars with custom interiors that I had done had won multiple awards around the country. Some were cover cars and feature cars in national publications, including Dick Bronson's 40 Ford Coupe, Sam Gregory's 40 Chevy that won Best Custom Interior at McCormick Place. By 1976, I started doing the high-dollar classic cars, the first being a one-of-a-kind Duesenberg Durham body Roadster, one-of-a-kind car belonging to Bob Baer of New Hampshire. So let's do a little overview here, a review. 1971, I had won my first Best Custom Interior with a 40 Ford Coupe with Richard Bronson from Jackson, Michigan. And then a variety of custom interiors, Sam Gregory's car that won around the country. And that would have been 73, 74. 75, got involved with Beaver doing the heavy iron cars. 1977, was in the middle of doing Richard Gould's 1931 Cadillac V16. My schedule at that time was to get up in the morning at Beaver's and work all day. Several days of the week I would drive down to Zion, Illinois, where my family was, have supper with them. Then I would sometimes drive on down to Waukegan, Illinois, where I still had a trim shop open with employees, go over the situation there, then go back up US 41 to Sturtevant, Wisconsin, go to sleep underneath the cutting table and do it again. May 27th, 1977, 9 o'clock at night. I was headed north on US 41, a 4-lane divided highway with a ditch dividing the lanes. Just past the last red light north of Gurnee, Illinois, all of a sudden from left to right in front of me, I see a blue leisure suit. I whipped my wheel and tried to go behind him another foot. I would have missed him. As it was, I hit and killed him. There were never any charges regarding this accident. This man's alcohol content was 4.55, and he was still walking. Well, after the accident happened, I froze at the wheel and just pulled over, ran back up to the hill. It's funny how your mind will block things out. I remember looking right down at this man laying right on the center line. I did not see any blood. I did not see that half his head was gone. A car came up the hill. I waved my hands at the car. It was a man driving. He went into the far lane and kept going. Next car came up the hill. I waved my hands at it. It was two girls. The one on the passenger side had the window rolled down, stuck her head out the window and said, "What are you worried about? He's dead." The third car coming up the hill, I ran right back at the car. I said to myself, this one's going to stop. I'm waving my hands. When the car stopped, I was beating my fist on the hood of the car. I looked up. The car was a Lake County Deputy Sheriff car. He had seen where this gentleman had driven his car into the divider of the ditch. He was in the southbound lanes. I was in the northbound lanes. This officer had gone down to the next turnaround and came back up the hill. And by the time he got there, I had already hit and killed the man. Had me tow the car back to my shop in Waukegan, Illinois. Stayed there, got up the next morning, saw the damage done to my car in daylight, took a garden hose and washed the man's brains off the roof of my car. I didn't know it. I guess I was in shock. I had a family to support. I have a car I'm working on that's supposed to be going to a show. I get in my other car and drive up to Sturtevant, Wisconsin. In Waukegan, I told an employee, pull the GTO in the shop, pull the front end off of it. About 11 o'clock in the morning, he calls me in Sturtevant, Wisconsin. His name was Bob Orlando. He said, "I can't work on your goat anymore." I says, "What's the problem? You need a tool?" He said, "No, the man's hand just fell out of the fender." I'd say that's when I lost it mentally. I called my sister in Michigan, my shop manager, my wife. I don't remember driving from Sturtevant back to Waukegan, Illinois. I don't know who it was that drove me to O'Hare to get a plane. Don't remember getting the tickets or getting on the plane. Don't remember getting off the plane in Lansing, Michigan. I remember opening the door to my sister's car. We drove through Michigan up to the Upper Peninsula and went across the Straits of Mackinac. That's the only thing I remember, was seeing the bridge just before we went across. Then we turned left in the Upper Peninsula, went over to Wisconsin. Don't remember anything about the drive back down except one time saw a sign that said Green Bay. Don't remember getting to Waukegan, Illinois. Don't remember going back to Sturtevant and working on that Cadillac. That accident happened May 27th, 1977. That Cadillac showed at Henry Ford's Fairlane Estate, July 9th, 1977. The next car I did after that was Pete Rossi's 29 Duesenberg that won Best in Show at Pebble Beach, California. Most of that time period is pretty much a fog for me. Doing those cars, and how I did them, I don't know. I was not skilled as an antique car upholsterer. I say I had a hand. He had to give me a hand because I couldn't have done it by myself. When I was in, shall we say, the depths of depression after I killed the guy, my sister Laura Gibney Cranston, or Laura Cranston Gibney, she knew what hell I was going through, and she sent me a couple of poems that meant a great deal to me. One of them was, "Do not now ask the question which cannot be answered, for you would not be able to live it." And the object is to live everything. Live the question now, and perhaps you will along some distant day live into the answer. The other poem that she sent to me, I will quote a little bit of the beginning and then the very end, is a poem called Desiderata, Desiderata, which is Latin for things yearned for. It states, "Go placidly amid the noise and haste, and remember what peace there may be in silence. As far as possible, without surrender, be on good terms with all persons. Speak your truth quietly and clearly, and listen to others, even the dull and ignorant. They too have their story. Avoid loud and aggressive persons. They are vexations to the spirit. If you compare yourself with others, you may become vain and bitter, for always there will be greater and lesser persons than yourself." And the end of it really says it all. Beyond a wholesome discipline, be gentle with yourself. You are a child of the universe, no less than the trees and stars. You have a right to be here. And no doubt, whether it is clear to you, the universe is unfolding as it should. Therefore, be at peace with God, whatever you conceive Him to be. In the noisy confusion of life, keep peace with your soul. With all its sham, drudgery, and broken dreams, it is still a beautiful world. Be careful. Strive to be happy. Now, after the accident in 1977, and after I got back from this trip with my sister, the only two people that I told what I was feeling inside was my wife and my sister, Laura Cranston Gibney. And what I told them was, I don't know what it was, but something died in me that night. I couldn't make sense of it. I've never had feelings of guilt about this accident, never had a bad dream. I was 100%, it was not my fault. Why do I feel so absolutely horrible? And I couldn't make sense of it, and I knew if I couldn't make sense of it, I couldn't tell other people because they wouldn't be able to make sense of it either. Now, if you fast forward from that event, afterwards, I just always lived with this uncertainty in me of, am I crazy? Why do I feel so horrible? But life goes on. Fast forward to 2014. Tony Stewart had his accident. Now, when my accident occurred, I felt like I could not allow myself to cry. Because if I allowed myself to cry, I would go off the deep end and not come back. So here it is, the year 2014. The accident was 1977. I was 37 when the accident happened. I was 74 when Tony Stewart's accident happened. That was half a lifetime ago for me. And I knew that's the first time that I cried. And I wasn't crying for me. I was crying for Tony Stewart because I knew what hell he was going through. And when I saw his eyes when he had his first news conference, I cried again because it was like my own eyes looking back at me. And when Matt Clark said Tony Stewart is hurting from a broken leg and a broken heart, I knew what he was talking about, because the only time my chest hurt worse than the year after that accident was when I had my heart attack. I have a son who is also a NASCAR fan, and we talked on the phone about this, and I made the comment that just like Tony Stewart said he couldn't make any sense of it, that he knew he'd done nothing wrong. I said it didn't make sense to me in 1977, and it doesn't make sense to me now. I know something died in me, but if you threatened to shoot me, I could not tell you. And my son told me, I know what died in you. I thought you knew. And I said, no, please tell me. He said, before the accident, there was a sparkle in your eyes. And since the accident, you tell jokes and laugh and you hear jokes and laugh. But I've never seen the sparkle in your eyes, not once. And subsequent to that was when I cried. It was subsequent to this conversation with my son where he expressed what had died in me from his viewpoint. He didn't say what it was that died in me, just a physical manifestation. He no longer saw the sparkle in my eyes. At 4 a.m., October 31st of 2014, I sat down 4 o'clock in the morning and wrote the beginning of this poem. On November 9th, 2014, 4 o'clock in the morning, I wrote the end of this poem. I dedicate this poem to anybody who, for whatever reason, has lost the sparkle in their eyes. It makes no difference to me whether I am by myself or in front of other people. When I recite this poem, the tears come. I think of a sister whose son could not see a light at the end of the tunnel and took his own life. I think of a 51-year-old man with a brilliant mind and creative hands who had a father who could only critique, correct, criticize, and complain, and extinguished the light in his eye. I think of the 50-year-old woman who as a child was Daddy's little princess. And at 14, he betrayed that trust and molested and extinguished the light in her eyes. I've entitled this poem,